The breath of the night. Night descends upon the old city like a velvet shroud, heavy, tender, and unhurried. It drapes across rooftops of slate and stone, wrapping them in a soft silver hush. Mist curls through the narrow alleys where the cobblestones gleam faintly beneath a single, wavering lamp. Far away, a horse passes in the fog, its hooves striking once, twice, then fading into wind and memory. The city sleeps. Behind closed windows and bolted doors, dreams murmur in the dark. Only the breath of air between the houses remains awake, stirring the scent of wood smoke, damp stone, and iron, a tired song the night hums to itself. And in a forgotten room, a man sits beside a trembling candle. Its flame sways gently, painting the walls in golden shadow. He turns a rusted blade slowly in his hands as though winding back the clock of his own existence, not for hunger, not for blood, but because it is the last thing left that still remembers him. He is not a hero. He is not a monster. He is only a man balanced on the narrow edge between light and shadow, between what the heart forgave and what the soul cannot release. Outside, the wind sighs beneath the eaves, the candle bends toward it, a weary breath surrendering to stillness. He closes his eyes, listening to the quiet pulse of the world, to the breath of the night, soft, patient, infinite. The tender voice of darkness cradling a soul that has forgotten how to dream. Long before the assassins of myth, there were men who vanished into silence. And when the hush of night finally claimed the city, the world remembered nothing of them. No names, no faces, only the whisper of wind where they once walked. Yet somewhere between shadow and memory, their kind endures unseen, unspoken, moving through history like a breath that never ends. No glory, no mercy, only the quiet necessity of their existence. The life no one chose. Long ago, no one was born to kill. They were born to till the soil, to sing under the sun, to love, to live, to grow old among laughter and rain. But when the wars ended, when fields burned to dust, when fathers never returned, and sons lay nameless in the mud, there was only one road left open for the hungry, the road that led into darkness. No one taught them how to hold a blade. There were no masters, no codes, no brotherhoods. Only instinct and the stubborn will to see another dawn. They learned to listen more than speak, to move without echo, to make peace with silence. For silence was both shield and companion. Some had once been soldiers, tired of killing for kings. Some were thieves, tired of stealing for nothing. And some were simply too hungry to remember what kindness was. Slowly, one by one, they disappeared into alleys, into smoke, into rumor, until they became shadows without names. People called them demons. But demons too were once human. And sometimes, being human was the hardest curse of all. The nights were long in those days. The air carried a chill that smelled of iron and rain. Lanterns flickered along crooked streets, casting trembling light that made even the cobblestones seem alive. And somewhere within that trembling world, a man waited. He was not brave nor cruel, only desperate. He waited for a voice that would whisper an address, a price, a promise. Coins glimmered like false stars in dirty hands. They were never enough. Gold could not buy peace, nor food that lasted longer than a day. Yet it could buy time, a few more nights of breath, a few more chances to hope that something might change. Every job began the same way, a walk through the sleeping city, a door that creaked, a heartbeat that did not know it was being counted. There was no glory in it, No thrill, no power. Only the sound of breathing, the feel of skin cooling beneath fingers, and the hollow silence afterward. And in that silence, they learned the weight of being unseen. To live without witness is to fade while still alive. To be feared but never known is to be forgotten before you die. They carried no banners, no prayers, no songs. If they spoke to God, it was only to ask why hunger existed longer than mercy. If they dreamed, it was of open fields that no longer belonged to them. When morning came, the city rose to another day of trade and noise. Children ran past the alleys where they had worked. Bakers opened shutters, the smell of bread spreading through streets where no one would ever know what had happened a few hours before. The world continued. It always did. And the shadows moved with it, quiet and invisible, keeping pace with life, but never joining it. Sometimes they saw their reflections in puddles after rain, faces lined by smoke, eyes tired beyond age. In those reflections, they saw both the person they had been and the thing they had become. For a heartbeat, pity flickered. Then it was gone. Even pity could be dangerous. There were rules, unwritten and cruel. Never ask names, never return to the same place twice, never keep what reminds you of the dead, and above all, never feel. Feeling was a luxury. It slowed the hand, blurred the edge, opened the heart to mistakes. So they buried it. The tenderness, the guilt, the small, fragile wish to be forgiven. They built walls of habit, rituals of silence. Every motion had meaning, every breath was a rehearsal for survival. They became craftsmen of disappearance. No footprint, no shadow, no sound left behind. Only the echo of something once human, lingering like the scent of smoke long after the fire dies. Years blurred, seasons passed without names. The young became old without realizing when. And in their aging, they discovered a strange calm, not peace, but numbness deep enough to resemble it. The blade no longer trembled, the hands no longer shook. The work continued, but the fear had faded. What replaced it was emptiness, a quiet acceptance that this was what remained of a life. Yet sometimes, in the slow hours before dawn, memories slipped through the cracks. A voice, a song, a child's laughter carried by the wind. They would pause, eyes unfocused, and feel the faint pulse of something they could not name. Perhaps it was longing. Perhaps regret. Perhaps the ghost of what it meant to be human. People told stories about them. Wild, terrible tales of assassins born from hell, creatures who moved faster than thought. But none of it was true. They were not creatures of myth. They were men and women who had run out of choices, and sometimes when they heard those stories whispered in taverns, they almost laughed. If only people knew how ordinary death looked up close, how soft and small it really was. Not the roar of thunder, but the sigh of a candle going out. There were no monuments for them, no songs written in their names. When they vanished, they left nothing. No families to mourn, no graves to find. Only the faint memory of motion in the dark, like leaves brushed by passing wind. And yet somewhere within that nothingness there was a fragile beauty. To exist without being seen, to move through the world without leaving scars deeper than your own, to know that even in the darkest acts, a small part of you still sought light. They never called it redemption, they barely called it living, but it was enough. Enough to keep breathing, enough to stay until morning. If you listen closely, you can still hear them in stories that never made it to paper. The quiet ones, the forgotten ones. They walk through every age, wearing new faces, hiding behind new names, still searching for a place where the sun doesn't hurt their eyes. And maybe, If the world were kind enough, someone would have told them, you were never monsters, you were survivors, and survival in a world built on cruelty was the most human act of all. The night of work. When the city sleeps, they awaken. Not to rest, not to dream, but to work in a world that does not know the sun. Their hours begin when others end. Their lives unfold between breaths the world forgets to take. They move quietly through the narrow streets where moonlight spills like pale dust across the cobblestones. The air is thick with mist and the faint smell of coal. Somewhere far off, a watchman's boots strike the stones, steady, rhythmic, distant. Each sound sharpens their senses, and the silence between those steps feels heavier than noise. They know this silence. They wear it like a cloak, a second skin that keeps them unseen. It is the sound of breath held in, of thoughts hushed before they can betray. In this stillness, every sound matters. The brush of cloth, the click of a blade, the slow, deliberate heartbeat that reminds them they are still alive. No one calls them by name here. Names are for daylight, for markets and laughter and belonging. In the night, they are shapes, motions, the echo of a decision made long ago. The darkness accepts them without question. It never asks who they were, only what they can do. Tonight is cold. The wind snakes through the alleys, whispering against the corners of old houses. They walk with purpose, one shadow merging into the next, until even the moon loses count. The blade they carry is not bright or new. It bears the small scars of use, tiny crescent marks where metal has met bone, but it is honest, silent, efficient, unremarkable, like its wielder. A door creaks in the distance, then closes again. Somewhere, someone whispers in their sleep, turns over and keeps dreaming. The world goes on unaware. They pass beneath an archway where ivy clings like veins to stone. There is water here, trickling from a broken fountain, its murmur almost like a prayer. For a moment they stop, listening to that sound. A sound that belongs to no one, to nothing, to the night itself. Their pulse slows. The rhythm of their breath deepens. They are waiting. They have always been waiting. Then a movement. A faint sound, softer than a sigh. The edge of their vision catches a shift of light. The body remembers what the mind does not need to command. A step forward, a hand lifts. Steel whispers, a single breath is held. And then the world returns to silence. No scream, no struggle. Just the quiet weight of completion, the strange stillness that follows an ending. The candle on the table flickers once, and in that tremor, life leaves the room. They stand there, still as the furniture. The air feels heavier now, thick with the scent of iron, and something almost sweet. They do not look long. There is nothing to see. It is not cruelty that keeps their eyes from lingering, only habit. Work is work. Feeling is a luxury reserved for others. They know this truth, and they accept it. Every act, every breath, every motion of their hand is just one more task between now and morning. They clean the blade with a cloth, wipe the hilt, fold it away as though putting a thought back into silence. The room will be found by dawn by someone else, someone who will scream, who will run, who will summon the guards. But by then the one who did this will already be gone. Down another alley, across a bridge veiled in fog, through the gates where the watchmen never look twice. No one sees them leave. The night closes behind them as though they were never there. And so the work is done. No applause. No reward beyond survival. Just the slow rhythm of footsteps and the whisper of breath inside the hood. They move until the sound of the city fades, until the only thing left is wind. It hums low through the cracks in old walls, carrying fragments of words spoken long ago, prayers, curses, lullabies. It does not matter. The night listens to them all. They find a place to sit. An empty bench, a forgotten stair. Somewhere the stars can just barely be seen through the cracks in the clouds. The blade rests beside them, its dull edge catching the faintest glint of moonlight. For a while, they simply breathe. In, out. In, out. The same rhythm as the waves of sleep rolling through the city. They imagine, for a moment, that this too is work. The work of staying alive in a world that does not care to remember you. Sometimes, in these moments, memories drift back, not as pictures, but as feelings. The warmth of a fire, the laughter of someone whose face has blurred with time. They wonder if that person still lives, if they ever knew what became of them. But the thought fades quickly. The night demands their attention. A cat darts across the path, its eyes twin sparks of green. It pauses, studies them for a heartbeat, then disappears into shadow. Even animals know to move quietly here. Above, clouds drift apart for a moment, revealing a pale slice of moon. It spills light over the rooftops, turning every tile into a shard of silver. The beauty of it aches, not sharp, but soft, like a bruise pressed by a gentle hand. They close their eyes. Behind the lids, the darkness feels endless, but not cruel, just vast. A space wide enough to hold everything: fear, sorrow, the faintest trace of hope. Soon dawn will come, the first cries of the market, the clang of buckets, the smell of bread. All of it will return, as it always does. And they will vanish once more into the noise, another face among thousands, a ghost wrapped in daylight. But for now, there is still night, still air, still silence. The kind of silence that hums beneath the skin, that speaks in the language of heartbeat and breath. This too is their craft, to disappear so completely that even the night forgets their shape. To work without witness, to finish without trace, to leave behind only a pause in the world's rhythm. They rise. The city exhales a long, cold sigh. Somewhere, a bell marks the hour. 3 soft tones fading into fog. The job is done. The night has moved on. And yet, as they walk away, the faintest echo lingers. Not of violence, not of guilt, but of something quieter, almost tender. The weary peace that comes from doing what must be done and surviving it. The world will never know them, their stories will never be told, but the night does not need stories. It only needs the sound of breath, the rhythm of footsteps, and the promise that when morning comes, someone will still be there to greet the light. The tools of darkness. There are no sacred weapons here, no gleaming silver swords, no blessed steel forged by holy hands, only rusted knives, rough ropes, and calloused fingers that know the weight of necessity. Everything they carry is plain, as modest and unadorned as the lives they lead. They learn to turn the world itself into a weapon. A broken cup could become a blade, a splintered chair leg, a hammer, a handful of dirt, a momentary blindfold. Every object, every sound, every shadow, all of it could serve a purpose if the will to survive was sharp enough. Theirs is not an art of glory, but of endurance. They do not fight with elegance or pride. They do not shout their victories into the dark. They move quietly, deliberately, as craftsmen who carve silence from fear. Their only true possession, the one thing that cannot be stolen or lost, is silence itself. Silence is their cloak, their prayer, their final ally. It hides them from pity, from noise, from thought. It smooths the jagged edges of conscience until even guilt begins to sound like calm. In that stillness, they find meaning, not in killing, but in the rhythm of breath held long enough to forget what breath is for. Their tools do not gleam, they absorb light. They are dull, dark things, the kind of objects you might pass every day without ever noticing how easily they could end you. The knife that cuts bread, the cord that binds a sack, the hook that hangs a lantern. Each one in their hands becomes something else. They do not see beauty in these things, but they respect them. Every blade is treated with a craftsman's patience, rubbed clean, sharpened just enough, never too sharp. Perfection, after all, is fragile. A weapon that cuts too easily forgets who it belongs to. Sometimes they whisper to their tools the way others whisper to gods. Not prayers, exactly, more like recognition. Each scar on the metal tells a story. A strike that landed, a night survived, a debt paid. The tools remember what the heart cannot bear to keep. When they lift a knife, it feels like holding history itself. A history too small to be written, too heavy to be shared. Their hands are their truest instruments, scarred, stiff, often trembling, yet precise in their fatigue. The fingertips know the difference between fear and hesitation, between life and the space it leaves behind. Their palms remember the shapes of walls, the texture of rope, the pulse of another being gone still. There is no hatred in the work. Hatred is loud, and loudness is death. There is only focus, a narrow tunnel through which the mind must crawl to reach the other side of night. The world outside never changes. Taverns hum, bells toll, lovers quarrel, and no one imagines that nearby someone waits in perfect silence. It is strange, perhaps, that such violence can exist beside such peace, but that is the nature of balance. Every candle has a shadow, every prayer a doubt. And so they continue. Night after night, they gather their few tools, wrap them in cloth, and step into the cold. The knife at the hip, the cord at the wrist, the patience in the lungs. These are the companions of their craft. They walk until the sound of their own steps feels like someone else's heartbeat. They stop when the air itself begins to listen. There are rules. Never let the metal glint. Never let the floor creak. Never let a heartbeat rise above the wind. They follow these commandments more faithfully than priests follow scripture. Each movement is a ritual. The way the fingers rest against the hilt, the way the breath pauses before the strike, the way the eyes soften just before closing forever. It is a liturgy of shadows. And though they do not believe in salvation, they believe in precision. Sometimes, when dawn is near and the mist glows faintly with hidden light, they pause to watch the world return to life. They see a woman opening her shutters, a child chasing a stray dog, a vendor rolling a cart into the square. These small, ordinary things seem more fragile than anything they have ever touched. They stand there for a moment longer than they should, listening to laughter drift through the air. Then they turn away, pull the hood lower, and vanish back into the rhythm of the waking city. No one notices, no one ever does. Their life is measured not in years, but in the quiet spaces between mistakes. Every successful night adds nothing to the future. It only delays the inevitable. Still they work. Not for money, not for vengeance, not even for survival anymore. They work because silence demands it. To stop would be to face the noise, the noise of memory, the noise of conscience, the noise of everything lost. Work keeps the noise away. It fills the emptiness with motion, with repetition so pure that it almost feels like peace. They have become masters of absence. Where they walk, the air forgets its shape. Where they rest, even shadows hesitate. If you stood beside one and closed your eyes, you might feel nothing at all, as though they had never been. The city itself becomes their workshop, every alley a corridor of thought, every rooftop a pause in the sentence of the night. They learn the way water sounds on tile, the way dogs bark before strangers pass, the way people dream by the faint rhythm of breath behind stone walls. Sometimes a church bell rings far away, and they stop to count the echoes. Each echo feels like a heartbeat belonging to someone else. They wonder, for a fleeting second, whether their own heart still beats in time with the rest of the world. But questions like that are dangerous. Curiosity sharpens the edges of guilt, so they exhale and let the thought go. Their silence is not emptiness, it is discipline. It is a thread connecting them to the world without letting the world pull back. In silence, they hear everything: the creak of the rafters, the sigh of the earth, the murmur of wind through reeds. Even their own breath sounds like another person's secret. Silence is the one weapon that never dulls. It does not break, does not rust, does not betray. It demands only devotion. In time, they come to love it, not as one loves a person, but as one loves a mirror that never lies. It shows them exactly who they are and what they have become. When they finally rest, it is not sleep, but suspension. They sit in corners, heads bowed, hands folded over the tools of their trade, the knife, the rope, the cloth. They do not dream. Dreams require hope, and hope makes noise. The candle burns low beside them. The flame wavers, then steadies, then wavers again, like a heartbeat deciding whether to go on. They watch until the wax pools, until the wick curls into smoke, until darkness reclaims the room. And when it does, they feel at peace. Because darkness is honest. It does not ask for names. It does not keep score. It accepts them completely. Their hands, their tools, their silence. Perhaps one day, someone will find the things they left behind. A knife dulled with time, a coil of rope stiff with dust, a scrap of cloth wrapped carefully around nothing. They will wonder what kind of person owned them, what kind of life could leave behind objects so ordinary, yet so heavy with use. And maybe, if they listen closely, they will hear it too. That faint echo beneath the surface of the world, the sound of breath held forever, the lingering pulse of those who worked in the night, who turned silence into survival and darkness into their only craft. Sleep that never comes. When others dream, they awaken. Their nights are not for rest, but for remembering, and their remembering has no mercy. Their sleep, when it visits, comes in pieces, fragments of faces, a drop of blood caught in candlelight, a whisper that never finishes its plea. They do not recall names anymore. Names fade too quickly. But they remember eyes, eyes that stared, unblinking, even as the light went out behind them. Eyes that belong to strangers, to ghosts, to guilt. Those eyes follow them into their half-dreams, and each time they wake, something inside feels older, more worn, as if time itself has been quietly feeding on them. No one touches them. No one speaks their name. The world passes around them like wind around stone. Conversations drift by, but never land. They walk through streets full of noise and laughter, feeling the sound slide past like water that refuses to wet the skin. The world is a vast, cold fabric, and they are the wrinkle that will never smooth out. Sleep should be soft, but theirs is jagged. It comes late, leaves early, and never arrives whole. When exhaustion finally overcomes the body, it does not bring peace, only surrender. In that grey half space between waking and dreaming, the mind begins its cruel work. It drags out the past like a box of old tools, examines each one, each wound, each act, each forgotten heartbeat, and asks again what it all was for. There are no answers there, only echoes, only the steady rhythm of regret. Sometimes they wake with their hands clenched, fingers curled around nothing, as if still holding a knife that has long since been set aside. Other times they wake gasping, the body trying to cry out where the voice cannot. Then comes the stillness. The long, aching stillness that fills the hours before dawn. It is in that stillness they truly live. Or perhaps, truly die. They keep candles burning, though they fear the light. It's not the brightness that frightens them, but what the brightness reveals. Dust, floating like memory, walls cracked with age, and the shadow of their own shape trembling in the corner. Light is a kind of truth, and truth has teeth. So they prefer the half-light, the grey, the colour of forgetting. It softens the edges of things, the furniture, the scars, the thoughts that should never be spoken aloud. The flame sputters, wax drips, time passes without ceremony. Outside, a dog barks once, then falls silent. The world exhales and the breath of night continues. There was a time when sleep came easily. They remember that vaguely. A bed of straw, the sound of rain, the warmth of another heartbeat close by. Before the blade, before the silence. But memory lies, it smooths over the rough parts, leaving only the kind illusion of what might have been. They know better now, even peace, when remembered, can turn to pain. They have tried everything, drink, prayer, fatigue, the long walk through alleys until their legs refused to move. Sleep will not be bribed or begged. It circles them like a wary animal, keeping just out of reach. When it finally comes, it comes not as rest, but as surrender. A fall into something deeper than darkness and colder than death. In the dreams they do manage to catch, time behaves like a broken clock. It loops and stutters, replays old nights in fragments. The faces of the lost return but not whole. Eyes without mouths, mouths without words. They walk through corridors that twist back upon themselves. Doors open into rooms they've never entered, yet every scent, every sound feels known. The floorboards creak in the rhythm of memory. The air tastes like iron and dust. And somewhere within the dream, they always hear it. A whisper calling their name. Not in anger, not in forgiveness, but as if the word itself is confused about whom it belongs to. They try to answer, but the voice breaks in their throat. The dream ends there. It always ends there. When dawn comes, it is not a comfort. Morning means visibility. It means faces, chatter, work. 1,000 little lies of normal life. The city rises and they rise with it, moving through the daylight like ghosts pretending to be human. People nod to them in passing, never looking twice. They nod back, careful, measured, the way one nods at fate itself. No one suspects the nights they carry inside. They buy bread, sip water, mend a torn sleeve. They practice the gestures of the living. But every touch feels borrowed, as though the world belongs to someone else. They have forgotten what softness feels like, the warmth of a hand, the weight of another body beside theirs. Once, that kind of closeness had meaning. Now it feels like danger. Love, after all, requires sleep, and sleep requires surrender. But they cannot surrender close the eyes completely is to open every door the mind has tried to lock. Better to stay half awake, half alive, safe within the steady rhythm of breathing. Sometimes they count their breaths to measure how long the night has lasted. Sometimes they stop counting because they cannot tell if it is still night at all. The loneliness grows its own kind of gravity. It pulls them inward into smaller and smaller spaces. Rooms become cells, cells become coffins, and still they remain awake, listening to the faint hum of the world, the heartbeat of things that sleep when they cannot. They envy even the stones, for stones do not dream. They envy the dead, for the dead do not wake. But envy makes noise, and noise invites memory, so they quiet even that. Silence has become their only lullaby. They hum it without sound, feel it in their chest, a pulse steadier than sleep could ever be. Sometimes they think of the word peace and wonder what it means. Is it the absence of pain, or simply the moment when pain becomes too familiar to notice? If they were to find peace now, would they even recognize it? Would it sound like a sigh, or would it sound like nothing at all? The candle burns low again. Wax pools on the table, shaped like continents no map will ever name. They watch the tiny flames struggle, a mirror of their own persistence. Trembling, exhausted, but unwilling to die. The flame gives no comfort, but it gives company. It flickers in rhythm with their breath, a heartbeat for a heart that has forgotten its own song. Outside, dawn begins to pale the world. The sky turns the color of old parchment, and the city exhales. Doors open, roosters cry, a new day insists on beginning. They do not move. They sit in the chair where night left them, eyes dry, hands still resting on the table. The light creeps across the floor, slow and patient, until it touches their skin. It feels like intrusion. It feels like judgment. But they let it come. They let it fill the room and reveal everything the dark had hidden, the dust, the wrinkles, the quiet, the tools of survival scattered like relics. They look at these small things, the cup, the cloth, the knife, and realize how little separates life from sleep, and sleep from death. Perhaps they think the reason sleep never comes is because they have already been dreaming all along. A long grey dream of motion and memory, of breathing without living, of living without rest. When they finally close their eyes, it is not from weariness, but from acceptance. The lids lower gently, like curtains drawn over a quiet stage. No audience, no applause, only the steady hum of existence. If sleep should find them now, let it come softly, without memory, without face, without name. Let it come not as forgiveness, but as forgetting, the sweetest mercy the world has left to give. For even in sleeplessness they have learned one final truth, that rest is not found in darkness, but in the moment you stop fearing it. Gold and betrayal. Gold, that radiant metal, that perfect circle of light, and yet perhaps the most beautiful lie ever spoken. It glimmers with the promise of safety, of warmth, of power, but beneath the shine, it smells of fear, of hunger, and of betrayal so quiet it can wear a smile. The first thing they learn in the underworld of shadows is that gold never arrives alone. It carries whispers, and behind every whisper there is a price not measured in coins. When someone comes to hire them, the ritual is always the same. A stranger enters, hood drawn low, voice steady but trembling at the edges. They lay a small purse on the table. The sound of the coins landing is almost holy, a bright, metallic rain in a world of dust. Then comes the sentence they all say, as though the words themselves could erase guilt. No one will know. No one will see. But they always know because gold carries its own scent. It is the scent of treachery, soft, sweet, and fatal. Gold has no loyalty. It changes hands the way shadows change shapes at sunset. It gleams in one palm, then in another, each time reflecting a different lie. And those who chase it, who let its glow guide their steps, sooner or later find themselves lost. Not in darkness, but in the cold brilliance of their own desire. They have watched many die for gold, some quickly, some slowly, but all with the same look in their eyes, a moment of disbelief, as if they could not understand why something so bright could lead to such darkness. There was once a man, they remember, who came with a smile too wide to be honest. He spoke softly, like a friend. He called them brother. He poured wine, counted out the coins, and said, "Do this one last thing for me." The bag was heavy, its weight almost comforting. Gold has that trick. It feels like security when you hold it, as if its density could fill the hollow inside you. The job was simple: a house, a door, a man asleep behind it. They did as asked. The blade did its work. The silence did the rest. When dawn came, they went to collect the second half of payment, but the man was gone. The innkeeper remembered no one. The wine was still half full, and the room smelled faintly of coin, that strange, sharp scent that lingers long after betrayal has been spent. From that night onward, they understood, gold does not pay, it consumes. Every coin taken leaves a mark, invisible but permanent, like the shadow of a brand on skin. Those who deal in gold forget faces, but gold never forgets them. It waits patiently until the circle completes itself, and the hand that once took the coin becomes the next target of another's greed. The world of shadows feeds on repetition. Today's killer is tomorrow's corpse. Today's employer becomes tomorrow's whisper. The currency is fear, and gold is only the mask it wears. They have seen it countless times, the trembling hand that offers payment, the nervous eyes darting toward the door, the relief that comes once the deal is done, and always beneath the surface, a kind of sickness. The sickness of those who believe money can erase consequence, but gold does not erase, it records. It keeps score in ways ink never could. Sometimes, when they empty their purse at night, they think they can hear it. The faint ringing of the coins against one another, like voices murmuring secrets to the dark. Each one carries a story. Each one belongs to someone who will not see the next sunrise. The weight of it becomes unbearable at times. They try to spend it quickly, on food, on drink, on silence. But gold does not vanish when you part with it. It only changes form. A loaf of bread becomes a debt, a roof becomes a chain, and still the glitter remains. Once they buried it. They dug a hole behind an abandoned mill, poured the coins into the earth, and covered it with stones. They thought the ground would swallow the curse. For a while, it worked. They slept easier, their dreams lighter, their thoughts slower. But then the dreams changed. The coins returned, not as metal but as eyes. Hundreds of them glinting in the dark, watching from beneath the soil. Each night, the eyes drew closer. Each morning, they woke with dirt under their nails. By the third night, they went back to the mill. They dug until their fingers bled, unearthed the coins, and felt an almost painful relief. It was as if the earth itself had been suffocating them, and the gold had been their only breath. They carried it home again, hands trembling, knowing they could never be free of it. Some things you bury, and some things bury you back. Gold is not evil, it is simply honest. It reflects what you bring to it. For some, it becomes warmth. For others, a blade. For most, it becomes a mirror showing what they would rather not see. When they hold a coin to the candlelight, they see not the face of kings but the faint reflection of their own. Tired, hollow-eyed, uncertain whether they are still human. It glows like a sun that never rises, a sun that blinds but never warms. It promises freedom but grants only dependence, a tether of shining links pulling them deeper into the night. And yet they cannot stop taking it. No one can. The world runs on gold. Every door opens for it. Every silence can be bought. Even mercy has a price. They tell themselves it is only survival, that without it there is only hunger. But deep down, they know hunger is cleaner. Hunger ends when the stomach is filled. Gold, on the other hand, creates its own emptiness, a hunger that devours from within. Sometimes they wonder what it would be like to refuse payment altogether, to do a job for nothing, to act without the promise of coin. But that too would be a kind of betrayal, not of others, but of themselves. They no longer know how to live without exchange, without the sound of payment sealing purpose. There are stories whispered among their kind, tales of those who tried to escape, who fled to the countryside, burned their money, changed their names. Every story ends the same. Someone finds them. Always someone. A knock on the door, a voice saying, "I have a job." The pay is good and they go because they must, because even if gold is poison, it is the only medicine they understand. They often wonder what betrayal truly means. Is it a single act? A lie told, a trust broken? Or is it something slower like rust eating through the edge of steel? They have betrayed many, yes. But in quiet moments, they realize the deepest betrayal was their own. The moment they traded a life for a living, the moment they chose survival over peace. That is the cruelest truth of gold. It never forces anyone's hand. It only offers the illusion of choice. And they took it again and again until choice itself became meaningless. Now, when someone slides a purse across the table, they no longer hear the clink of metal. They hear the faint echo of graves being filled, of promises collapsing, of hearts shutting their doors. They still take the gold because refusing it would change nothing, but they take it knowing that every coin carries a shadow, and that someday those shadows will come to collect their due. Gold, after all, remembers. And betrayal, once begun, never truly ends. The Night of Flames. In the square, a crowd gathers beneath the darkening sky. Torches sway in trembling hands, their tips spitting sparks into the cold air. Voices rise, chanting, shouting, praying, and at the center of it all, the first fire is lit. It begins softly, like a breath catching in the throat of the night. A faint orange glow curls upward, small and fragile. Then, as oil feeds it, it grows bold, hungry, alive, certain of its purpose. The people watch with shining eyes, their faces bright with the reflection of righteousness. They tell themselves, this is good, this is justice, this is light driving away darkness. But what truly moves them is fear. They don't need proof. They never do. A whisper is enough, a rumor, a face that looks too calm, a silence that feels suspicious. Someone says, heretic. Another repeats it. And before long, the word becomes a spark. The spark becomes a flame. And the flame becomes the world. Bound at the stake, the condemned tremble, but do not speak. Perhaps they no longer believe that words can change anything. Their eyes meet those of the crowd, and in that gaze lives an entire history of disbelief, terror, and despair. Someone throws a stone. someone else spits. And then the fire touches flesh. It roars, hissing like a beast released from centuries of chains. The smell of oil, hair, and skin fills the square. The first scream rips through the air, so sharp it feels alive, and still the crowd cheers. Louder, always louder, because if they stop shouting, they might hear what they're doing. They tell themselves they are saving the world. They tell their children to look, to learn, to remember that evil has a face and must be burned away. But deep inside, they know, and this is not salvation. It is only survival dressed in flame. The square glows like day now. Shadows flee into corners. Smoke coils upward in thick grey spirals. And in that smoke, the faces of the dying seem to linger. Faint shapes, pleading, twisting, vanishing. A priest raises his arms. His voice, solemn and proud, rings out, "Let the fire cleanse our fear." But fire does not cleanse. It only spreads. In the alley beyond the light, others stand and watch. Their clothes are dark, their faces hidden. They are not part of the crowd. They are the ones who live where the light cannot reach. The forgotten, the hunters, the men and women whose lives depend on silence. The flames dance in their eyes. One of them whispers, "How long before the fire comes for us?" No one answers. They all know the truth. It is only a matter of time, for every mob needs new monsters. And when the old ones are ash, the fire must feed again. They stay until the last body falls still, until the torches burn low and the crowd begins to scatter. The city exhales, its fever fading into cold. Ash drifts like grey snow. The smell of death lingers in every thread of night. "Look at them," one says quietly. "They think the danger is gone." Another shrugs. "It is. Until tomorrow." They leave the alley one by one, their footsteps soft, their hearts heavier than they admit. They are killers, yes, but even they know this is different. Killing in shadow feels cleaner than killing in daylight. At least the dark doesn't pretend to be holy. In the morning, the square will look the same. Children will play where blood soaked the stones. Merchants will set up their stalls again. The city will forget. It always does. History will call it the night of cleansing. Songs will be written, poems will speak of light triumphing over evil, and no one will remember that the people who burned were never proven guilty. The fire, after all, burns truth and lies in the same color. Far away, on a rooftop, one of the watchers remains. He has not moved since the flames died. Smoke curls around him like a ghost's breath. He stares at the ashes and feels a strange stillness. Not pity, not guilt, but recognition. For a moment he sees himself in those who burned, condemned by rumor, unnamed, unseen, alive only because someone else was chosen first. He whispers, "The fire does not care who it eats." The words vanish into the night like sparks. As dawn creeps in, he finally stands. His cloak smells of smoke, his hands of ash. He walks through streets where the cobblestones still radiate heat. Every window is closed, every door shut tight. Fear has gone to sleep, for now. He pauses at a fountain and washes his face. The water runs black for a moment, then clears. He looks at his reflection. It wavers, broken by ripples, and for a moment, he almost doesn't recognize the man staring back. Perhaps that is what the fire truly does. Not kill, but erase. It burns names, faces, stories, until all that remains is the silence afterward. By evening, the city glows with false calm. The air tastes of soot and relief. People eat, laugh, sing again. They believe they have survived something terrible. They do not realize that what they survived was themselves. In the same alley where the watchers once stood, A child pokes at the ashes with a stick. He finds something small, something golden. A coin, half melted, stamped with a symbol no one remembers. He pockets it and runs off, unaware that even gold carries ghosts. Far above, the night sky flickers faintly, as if reflecting the fire that once consumed the ground below. The moon hides behind a veil of smoke. The stars look dim, as though afraid to be seen. And still the question lingers. The one whispered by those who watched, the one too dangerous to speak aloud in daylight. Between shadows and silence. One night, he walks past an abandoned house. Its windows are hollow, its roof bowed like a tired spine. Grass grows wild between the stones, and the door hangs crooked, half open, as if waiting for a visitor who never came. He pauses at the gate. The wind breathes through the cracks, and something inside creaks. A whisper of metal, a sound too gentle to belong to danger, yet too deliberate to be ignored. It echoes once, twice, then fades like a drop of water falling into an endless well. He listens. His pulse answers louder than the sound itself. For a long moment he stands there, staring into the darkness behind the doorway. The air smells of dust, rust, and rain that never fully dried. A memory stirs, something he can't quite name. A night long ago, a question left unfinished. He almost laughs, and under his breath he murmurs, "If I fear ghosts, does that mean something out there will come to frighten me?" The wind doesn't reply. It only sighs, a low, hollow tone that could be breath or echo or warning. He smiles faintly, the kind of smile a man wears when pretending not to be afraid. Then he steps forward. The floor groans under his boots. The sound travels down the hallway like a ripple through still water. Moonlight filters in through the broken roof, spilling across the floor in silver puddles. He sees outlines. A chair missing one leg, a portrait too faded to show a face, a mirror cracked into a web of glass. Every house keeps a memory, he thinks. Some are kind, some are cruel. This one feels tired, as though it has watched too much life happen and too much silence follow. He touches the wall. It's cold, smoother than he expects. Beneath the dust, he feels marks, scratches, carved lines, as if someone once tried to count the days here and then stopped. A chill runs through him, not fear exactly, but recognition. He moves deeper inside. Each room holds a different version of silence. In one, it feels heavy, as if waiting. In another, it feels light, almost gentle, like a breath released after years of being held. He passes a table, half collapsed under its own age. There's a cup still resting there, its rim chipped, its surface coated in dust that glitters faintly in the moonlight. He wonders who last touched it. Did they leave in a hurry? Did they think they would return? Or did the world simply forget them, as it forgets most things? Slowly, softly, without cruelty, only time. In the next room, he finds a mirror. It leans crooked against the wall, its glass cracked into a dozen uneven fragments. He crouches before it. At first, he sees only distortion. Pieces of a face that don't quite belong to one another. An eye here, a mouth there, a shape that might be him or might be someone else entirely. He stares longer and the pieces begin to shift. The cracks seem to move, not physically, but in perception, as if memory itself is trying to rearrange what it once knew. And then he sees it, a faint reflection behind his own. A figure in the doorway, blurred, colorless, still. He turns. No one. Only the air moving slowly through the house, brushing against old curtains that sway like tired ghosts of fabric. He looks back at the mirror. The reflection is gone. He breathes out, long and steady. Imagination, he whispers. But the word feels uncertain, a leaf dropped into a bottomless well. He steps away and opens another door. It leads to a narrow stairway, its edges soft with rot. He places a hand on the rail. The wood crumbles slightly under his touch, like something that has waited too long for warmth. The steps moan as he climbs, each one echoing upward, like a heartbeat inside a chest, too large for one person. At the top, a single room awaits. Small, square, quiet. Moonlight pours through a hole in the ceiling, drawing a pale circle on the floor. He stands within it, letting the light rest on his shoulders. It feels like being seen. Not by a person, but by the house itself. He closes his eyes. Memories rise, uninvited. The sound of rain on iron. A voice calling his name long ago. The feeling of guilt that never found its words. He opens his eyes again and whispers, "What am I afraid of?" The wind answers from below, a low hum that moves through the boards, rattling something far away. He imagines it as laughter, not cruel, but knowing. Perhaps the house isn't haunted by spirits, perhaps it's haunted by thought, by all the things people bring and never take away. He walks to the window. Outside, the night stretches endless, soft and blue. The fields glisten faintly with dew, and the trees sway as though listening. From here, the world looks clean, peaceful, as if nothing dark has ever touched it. He knows better. Every silence hides a noise that once was. Every peace grows from something broken. He stays at the window a long time, his reflection faint beside the glass. He looks like part of the night, a figure carved from shadow and thought. He whispers, "If I disappear right now, would the wind remember the sound of my steps?" No answer, only the steady rhythm of leaves moving. When he finally turns to leave, he feels lighter somehow. Not safe. Safety is for those who still believe in protection, but empty in a way that feels clean. As he descends the stairs, his footsteps no longer echo. The house accepts his weight without complaint, as if it recognizes him as one of its own. At the door, he pauses again. The moonlight spills across the threshold. He steps through it, and for a heartbeat, he imagines that the house exhales behind him, a slow, relieved breath. He doesn't look back. Some places are not meant to be seen twice. Outside, the night is cool. The air carries the faint scent of rain and soil. He walks down the road, hands in pockets, listening to the sound of gravel beneath his boots. Each step feels like erasing something, a thought, a fear, a memory. And yet something remains, like the afterimage of light behind closed eyes. He glances once more toward the shape of the house, now distant and small, its roof outlined in silver. It looks peaceful, as if it has swallowed its own secrets. He smiles again, faintly. There are no ghosts, he thinks, only echoes. And echoes cannot harm anyone unless they're answered. He takes a deep breath. The wind passes through him, carrying a sound almost too quiet to notice. A faint, rhythmic creak, like a whisper of iron moving somewhere far away. He stops, listening. The sound fades, swallowed by the vast, sleeping night. Then he continues walking. The road stretches forward into darkness, the stars trembling above, the world both empty and infinite. And as he walks, his thoughts drift somewhere between belief and guilt, between fear and calm, that narrow space where the mind stops asking questions and simply breathes. He does not know if he's walking away from something haunted or toward it. He only knows that for the first time in a long while, his heart feels still. The night does not speak again, and he does not need it to. When the hands no longer tremble. Old age does not come suddenly. It drifts in like nightfall, soft and patient, creeping into the edges of the day until everything turns grey. He feels it before he sees it. The weight in his knees, the slow ache behind his eyes, the quiet surrender of breath. His hands, once steady, once cruel, now shake only when they try to hold something. But tonight, they are still. He sits by the window of a small, forgotten room. The world outside has faded into shadow. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then stops. The wind carries dust through the cracks, whispering across the floorboards like the ghost of time itself. He has not killed in years. He no longer remembers the last face clearly, only fragments, the color of fear, the taste of silence, the strange calm that comes after everything ends. The knife he once carried lies beside him on the table. The blade is dull now, eaten by rust. When he touches it, his skin feels older, as though the metal remembers what he has forgotten. He laughs softly, not out of joy, but recognition. How many years has it been since those hands were his own? They no longer belong to the man who used them. They are relics now, wrinkled, mapped by veins like rivers drying in summer. They do not tremble from fear, only from time. He thinks of fear often, how it once ruled him, how it made him quick, clever, dangerous. Fear was the teacher, survival the lesson, but now there is nothing left to fear. When everything you love is gone, even death becomes polite. He breathes deeply. The air tastes of iron and wood. It reminds him of the places he once hid, the corridors where echoes followed him like questions without answers. Every sound back then meant danger. Now silence is the only sound that remains. He closes his eyes and listens to the night. There are small noises. The hum of insects, the faint shifting of the house as it breathes. He imagines these sounds are memories trying to find their way back to him. Sometimes they do. In flashes, in dreams that feel too sharp to be fiction, a road lit by fire, a voice calling his name, a pair of eyes refusing to close. When he wakes, he can never remember the details. Only the feeling stays. The heaviness in the chest, the quiet ache in the throat. Guilt has its own language. It speaks without words, but it never forgets its meaning. He looks at his hands again. There was a time they never shook, a time when they obeyed every command, to hold, to strike, to take. Now they disobey by simply existing, by trembling when he tries to lift a cup. He finds it almost poetic, and that age should take from him the very precision that once defined his life. The body is merciful in strange ways. It forgets what the soul cannot. He remembers his teacher once saying, "A man's worth is measured by what his hands can do." At the time, he believed it. He made his hands useful, tools, weapons, servants of necessity. But sitting here now, he wonders if worth can ever be found in destruction. He wonders if hands, like hearts, can unlearn. There was a woman once. He cannot recall her name, only the curve of her laughter. She used to trace the lines on his palms and say they looked like cracks in dry earth. "Too much sun," she joked. "Too much time." She left long before the trembling began. He does not blame her. Some lives are too heavy to share. Some men carry storms inside them, and sooner or later, those storms break everything close. Sometimes he imagines her face when she hears of his death. Would she close her eyes and pray for him? Or would she simply forget the way the world forgets those who disappear quietly? He hopes it is the latter. Forgetting is a kind of mercy. He rises from the chair slowly. His legs ache with the effort. He walks toward the table where the knife waits. The moonlight glints on the edge that no longer cuts. He picks it up, feeling its weight. Light, almost meaningless now. There was a time it was an extension of his will. Now it is only a memory, a shape, pretending to be power. He turns it in his hand, watching how the faint light slides along the rust. His reflection trembles in the metal, a blurred echo of the man he once was. He wonders, was that man truly him? Or just a story built from necessity? A mask worn so long it grew into skin. He sets the knife down gently. For the first time, his hand doesn't shake. Outside, the night deepens. Clouds drift across the sky like slow thoughts. He hears the wind move through the trees, and in that sound there is something almost kind. He sits again, this time without the knife, and lets his body rest. The chair creaks softly beneath his weight, a small reminder that even stillness makes noise. He thinks of all the people he has been. The boy who learned too early how the world works, the man who killed to prove he could survive, the ghost who wandered through years without knowing what he sought. Now, at the end of it all, he realizes the only thing left to fear was never death, but the life that kept going afterward. To live too long with guilt, that is the true punishment. He looks toward the window again. Dawn has not yet come, but the sky has softened at the edges, as if light is testing the horizon. He imagines morning arriving, the world waking without him, birds calling names he no longer answers to. It comforts him somehow. The world does not stop for the broken. It continues as it should. He runs a hand through his hair, feeling the thinness of it, the way age leaves no part untouched. Each wrinkle is a map of the choices he made, each breath a reminder that the body forgives what the heart cannot. He whispers to no one, "I am still here." The words sound strange, as if spoken by someone else. But they are true. In the corner of the room, the knife catches the first faint thread of light. He sees it and smiles. Not because it shines, but because it stays still. Once he lived by motion. Every gesture meant something, every silence hid intent. Now motion is no longer needed. Stillness has become his final craft. He thinks not of redemption, but of release. Forgiveness feels too distant, too elaborate for a man like him. But release, that he understands. To let go of the trembling, to let go of the weight, to exist without resistance. He exhales long and even. His hands rest quietly on his knees. They do not move, they do not shake. They have nothing left to prove. Outside, the first bird sings. The sound is small, pure, unafraid. It cuts through the dark like a thin blade of light. He closes his eyes, listening. The night fades around him, and for once, he does not chase it. He lets it leave. In the stillness that remains, there is no sin, no salvation, only breath. Steady, slow, and whole. The last memory. He dreams again, not of darkness, not of blood, but of light, soft, endless light stretching across an open field. The air is warm, the wind moves like breath over the grass, bending it gently, never breaking. The sky above is wide and pale, a canvas brushed with clouds so thin they look like forgotten thoughts. He walks through it barefoot. The soil beneath him is cool, and somewhere far away, a bell rings. Slow, patient, distant. The sound drifts across the field like the voice of a world that has forgiven everything. He doesn't know how he came here. There is no path, no beginning, no end, just the moment, a still frame of peace that refuses to fade. He looks down at his hands. They are clean. No scars, no blood, no history. The veins that once carried fear now pulse only with quiet. Even his heartbeat feels slower, less like survival, more like surrender. The wind carries scents. Grass after rain, earth warmed by sun, the faint sweetness of distant water. He closes his eyes to breathe it in. It fills his chest, and for the first time in a lifetime, the weight does not return. There are no walls here, no voices calling his name. No echoes of those he once hurt. Only silence, soft and complete, like a hand resting gently on his shoulder. He walks further, though there is nowhere to go. Every step feels both new and familiar, as if he has been here before, not in body, but in hope. In the distance, he sees a small tree. Its branches move slowly in the breeze, casting a pattern of light and shadow over the grass. He walks toward it, drawn not by curiosity, but by recognition. Beneath the tree lies a single stone, no name, no inscription, just a smooth surface worn by time and wind. He kneels beside it, his fingers trace its edge. The stone is warm. He feels something shift within him, a quiet knowing, a memory unspoken. This place is not heaven. It is not forgiveness. It is simply peace, the kind that needs no explanation. He lies down beside the stone. The grass folds gently beneath him. Above, the clouds drift like slow waves, their movement endless, patient, kind. The bell rings again, its sound softer this time, as if carried from another life. He closes his eyes. Behind his lids, the light turns golden. It hums, not like music, but like thought dissolving into rest. For a moment, he feels the world fade, the pain, the noise, the weight of memory, all thinning, all quieting, until only breath remains.
He thinks of faces, some clear, some lost. He sees the smile of a woman he once loved, the eyes of those he could not save, the shape of a boy he used to be. They drift before him, not accusing, not forgiving, just there.
He reaches out, but his hand passes through them like mist. And still, the warmth stays. In this dream, everything is allowed to exist without needing to be fixed. Time does not move here. The sun does not rise or fall. There is only light, gentle, endless, without direction. He wonders if this is what death feels like. Not an ending, but an untangling. A quiet release from gravity and guilt. The wind brushes his hair. He opens his eyes once more. The field stretches forever, and somewhere far away, the bell rings one last time. A note so soft it feels like breathing. He smiles. Not the smile of joy, but of peace, a fragile thing that finally found space to exist. He knows now that this is not a dream he will wake from, and yet that does not frighten him. He does not need to return. There is nothing left behind that asks for him, and nothing ahead that demands he move.
This moment, this quiet, endless field, is enough.
He lets his hand rest on the grass. It sways gently beneath his fingers, as if alive, as if grateful. He feels its pulse, a rhythm slower than the heart, deeper than time. The air grows still. The wind sighs once, then settles. His eyes close. The light deepens to amber. The bell fades. And the last thing he feels is the warmth of the earth cradling him like memory. Soft, forgiving, infinite. A final breath leaves him, soundless, effortless. Not an ending, just continuation. No pain. No fear. Only peace. A dream with no end. When the darkness learns to sleep. Dawn rises slowly over the sleeping city. The light arrives not with fanfare but with hesitation. A soft bloom of grey before gold, a question rather than an answer. The streets are empty. Windows stay closed. The world has not yet remembered itself. And somewhere, in a room too small to hold memory, a man has just left this world. No one knows. There is no cry, no discovery, no sound but the faint stirring of air through a half-open window. The candle on the table has burned out, leaving only a thin spiral of smoke that curls once and vanishes. The blade beside it, dull, rusted, and long familiar, lies still, its work, whatever it was, finished. Outside, the morning wind moves through the city's alleys, touching brick and glass and leaves. It carries a warmth too small to notice, but enough to stir the curtains. They rise for a moment, as if exhaling. It is then that the room seems to breathe, a soft, invisible rhythm, steady, human, though the man who once gave it life is gone. For a long time, darkness has been his only companion. It waited for him each night, followed him through years of silence, sat beside him when sleep would not come.
He feared it once, the way a child fears deep water. But in the end, it was the darkness that stayed when everything else left.
Now, in the quiet between one breath and none, it feels as though the darkness has finally learned what he never could: how to rest. It lingers not as a threat, but as comfort. No longer cold, no longer endless, just still. The city outside begins to stir. Somewhere, a market vendor pushes open a door. A kettle whistles faintly behind a window. Birds take the first cautious flights of morning. Life resumes its slow, forgiving rhythm.
None of them know about the man in the small room. They don't need to. He asked for no witness, no name, no story. He wanted only this, an ending without noise.
The table holds what remains: a book with no cover, pages yellowed and half-torn, a cup with traces of water at the bottom, the dull glint of steel. And yet, in the dim light, nothing feels tragic. There is no drama here, only completion. The air feels warm, the dust dances gently. The silence, though full, is kind. If someone were to step into the room, they might mistake it for a place waiting to be lived in again. A chair slightly pulled back. A window half open to the dawn. A candle that could, with one touch, return to flame. But the man has already gone where sound cannot follow. He has crossed the narrow bridge between waking and whatever comes after.
And perhaps, in that unseen place, he has finally learned to rest the way the darkness does, without need, without fear.
Outside, the sun climbs higher. The light spills across rooftops, catches on puddles, glimmers on railings and glass. It finds the room at last, sliding gently through the curtain's edge, laying its pale hand upon the floor. The light does not disturb anything, it does not judge, it only observes as if to say, Even endings deserve warmth. The knife shines faintly, its rust turning gold. The table's shadow stretches, thinning as the day grows. And for a moment, the entire room feels alive again. Not with pulse or thought, but with peace. He had once written, long ago, in the margin of a torn notebook, "The darkness is not to be feared. It is where tired souls rest."
At the time, he didn't understand what he meant. It was a sentence written to fill a silence, a thought scribbled to survive another hour. But now the words have become truth.
Darkness was never the enemy. It was the mirror he avoided, the quiet he refused to enter. It waited patiently, not to claim him, but to cradle him when the weight of light became too heavy. And now, as the dawn slips softly across the city, it feels as if the darkness has finally exhaled, a deep, unbroken sigh. If the world were listening, it might hear that sigh in the rustle of leaves, in the hush of early wind, in the low hum of morning beginning again. But the world is busy with its own waking. It has no time to notice one less heartbeat. It has no reason to pause. And yet, for those who look closely, something feels gentler today, the light softer, the air quieter, as though the city itself is keeping a secret too fragile to name. By noon, the room will be bright. Someone will pass by the door, perhaps glance inside, perhaps not. The world moves forward, always forward, but the stillness inside will remain. A single note held after the song is done. Maybe that is all a man ever leaves behind. Not legacy, not memory, but the faint trace of calm in a place that once knew his breath. Evening will come again. The same sun that woke the city will fall behind its roofs and towers. Shadows will return to the walls, stretching, folding, whispering, and when they reach that quiet room, they will find no fear waiting for them, only rest. The darkness will enter gently, without purpose, without sorrow. It will settle like soft fabric over the table, the chair, the blade, the bed. It will breathe slowly as if it has learned something new. The candle will remain unlit, but the room will not feel empty. There will be warmth in the air, a trace of something human still lingering. Not a ghost, not memory, just the echo of peace. Outside, the night will begin its quiet song. Windows will close. The city will sigh again into slumber. And somewhere within its endless hum, beneath the pulse of dreams and engines and hearts, a whisper will drift, gentle, unspoken, eternal. The darkness is not to be feared. It is where every restless soul finally learns to sleep.